welcome to the Anarchy After Hour. And before we started, if you've watched the evolution of the revolution before this, which I strongly suggest, fantastic coverage that Chris did of the parental alienation, all of the stuff that the courts have done. But before we got into that, we were having a brief conversation.
Kind of bullshitting before we started.
Right.
Yeah,
Before we started.
That's when all the good conversations go on.
Right.
Recording.
Right.
Right. As soon as we record, it's like,
yeah. Oh no.
What do we talk about?
Right.
Yeah, right.
You were talking about that you might consider getting into like marketing yourself with Tarot. One place that I want to suggest, like I said, I've before we started, I mentioned to Nico, I'm 45 years old, and I have been doing Tarot since I was 18. So a couple of days. And what I suggest is I don't generally with spiritual subjects tell people to start with Aleister Crowley, because generally that's a really bad idea.
Fast forward to the end and it's like, whoa.
Yeah, right. Usually that's a bad idea to start there. But that is not true when it comes to Tarot. He has a book called The Book of Thoth. And Thoth is the Egyptian god of like transcription. He's the god of magic. He's the god of all those kinds of things. And the Book of Thoth takes the symbolism that doesn't matter. Yeah, you can use Crowley's deck, or you use Waite's deck, or any of the other decks that are out there, which most of the Tarot decks that are out there are based on either Crowley's deck or Waite's deck. And I suggest that if you are using a deck, you use one that is, I prefer the Crowley deck because Waite threw in some nonsense in there to throw people off on purpose. But either way, whatever deck you're using, you can take the symbolism that Crowley goes through in the Book of Thoth and apply it to the Tarot, and it will give you insight, like why each little piece of the picture that you're looking at is there. And for me, as a reader, when I look at the card, I can see immediately with the picture. Like, let's say I throw down the Strength card in Crowley's deck. It's called the Lust card. I throw down the Strength card, and the first thing that I notice in the Strength card is that the female in the picture has her hand out. Well, that Crowley goes through and describes why each of the images are what they are. So if you know what that symbolizes, then you can look at it and say, oh, she is welcoming the energy of the Strength card, of Leo, of self-ownership, of those kinds of ideas, and ingest that in your reading. So it makes
I've actually done something along the lines of that. That's why I'm kind of devastated. This MacBook is broken and your boy needs some money, but it's all right. I was actually going into the Negro spiritual. No, I'm just kidding. I was going deeper into like the Black origins, and my aunt and uncle, or my cousins, I mean, actually who I do want to bring on and to have them talk and stuff. But she's like, all right, I want you to read this book, and it's the symbolism book, and it was just everything like symbolism, A through Z, and like the little minute symbols, what colors mean and stuff like that. And I was going through that. She has an Aleister Crowley tarot card. I have the Aquarian tarot.
all right, that is going to be weight based, more than likely, because was that the moon or the sun on the front?
That was the sun.
Oh, that's the sun. Oh shit. No,
that was the sun.
Okay,
it was the moon.
That's going to be weight based because Crowley's son would have had two children around a hill, and so the symbolism is slightly different. But yeah, it cool.
I was interested in getting Crowley's one of Crowley's deck when I come across a little money. I'm most definitely gonna grab me another deck or two. Doing a couple of readings for my friend, and I've been on fire. I use
Nico, hold that card up again. If you pulled that out for me, okay, it looked a little different when I saw it before. I was like, it looked like a ball sack. Somebody pulled that card for me. I'd be like, I got a ball sack? What does that mean?
Well, see, and I was actually kind of like hung up on the difference in pronunciation. Like I've always said tarot, and Nico is saying tarot, and then you're saying tarot, and I can't help but think. I just keep thinking of like, is there like a Walfred? God damn it, Ralph Waldo Emerson deck, and is there like a Henry David Thoreau deck? But anyway.
Yeah, the thing is, there is probably a any kind of deck, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of people making a bunch of money.
I was just joking. It was like it wasn't even that good of a joke to begin with, and then I fucked it up at the beginning because I couldn't pronounce Ralph Waldo Emerson's name. I was calling him Walf, and but anyway,
Walf.
That's I've only done like I generally kind of like stayed away from that stuff because like it's one of
people tend
it's
to.
kind of interesting. Like it's similar to like the voodoo thing, where yeah, that's interesting. Is that from the same deck? Like. Or is that a different deck?
Yeah, this is what it looked like. I just had.
Oh, that was just like the zoomed in for that. It was like the box or something.
Not the descriptions.
You were talking about nutsacks and stuff with imagery. I'm gonna show you. I'm serious. I'm gonna show you Crowley.
Oh, I don't want to see. Listen, Jeffrey Tubin, not today. Not today. We are not doing that
Crowley,
today.
This is funny shit, dude. This is Crowley's devil card. Check it out.
Patreon exclusive.
Right.
Exactly.
Get a pair of nuts.
Look at that.
On your screen.
I don't want to look at it if it's.
Couple balls.
Oh wow.
And a dick.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, all right.
So
we got little kids
I was
swimming
cool.
around.
I was cool without that. Sorry, people. I just
work here.
I just know these people. Like
They're victims of the family law court system.
Retweets are not endorsements. Something like that.
Yeah, but the thing is, that's one of the things to bring it back around to the family law stuff. Because both of my first two wives got into alternative spirituality after meeting me, and and all that. And when we got divorced, they went back to kind of being Christians, and I was worried that it was going to hit me. I picked up a book on specifically for the reason of being able to defend myself. It's called Paganism in the Law. And I picked it up for the purpose of being able to defend myself if in that situation, which I since found out it probably wouldn't have fucking mattered, because they're going to do whatever the hell they want anyway. And it would have just been another excuse to throw the hammer down on me. But one of the things that for me with the family law stuff is I actually am blessed to have not had the kind of experience. Like, I wasn't a dick to my ex-wife that I was getting child support from. I let her skate. I didn't throw a big fit if she missed a payment or anything like that. Kept the amount low. And my ex-wife, same deal. And I think that one of the things that all of us, whether it was me or it was even before, I really became a voluntarist and all of that, because really my current wife, Amber, brought me to being a libertarian, really, to fully understanding that. She's the one that kind of like pushed me into Ron Paul in the 2012 election. In 2008, oh hell no. I was a neocon in 2008. I thought Ron Paul.
Oh, see, I was like already at that point. I was at the don't vote for McCain, Palin. I got to figure something else out. I was like, and then I looked at like Bob Barr, and I was like, I don't know. And then I actually I went and held my nose and voted for McCain, Palin anyway.
I voted
Yeah,
for,
no, that's why I did too. I did that too. It was because of Palin, because it was like I bought into the whole Maverick, like she was like pushing back against the establishment and all this other kind of crap that you hear from the people in Alaska who were talking shit about that and everything. And I was like really, really offended that people were going in on her for like when Katie Couric interviewed her and all this kind of stuff. And I was defending her and all this shit. It's like, it was really stupid. I actually had a friend that I haven't talked to a whole lot since then. And we started talking, like we just like really, really started talking again like a few months ago. And he just like picked up right where we had left off, where he just assumed I was still there. And I was like, no, this is not the man who was defending the Iraq war and like, telling, blaming stuff on and like, trying to do the same thing that people are doing now with Trump and Biden, with like John Kerry and George Bush, it's all that kind of crap. It's like, this isn't that same person. Like, fuck, because when I posted that video that you put on Facebook, or maybe I put it on Facebook. Shit, I don't remember. Anyway, the one where I was like, did y'all watch that fucking debate? That was a shit show, and this should tell you like what they think about you. And it's time to just say fuck all that shit, own yourself, and let's get the fuck. Let's go. Yeah. I was done with all the politics shit at all. And that was where he actually like called me back up, and he's like, hey man, I saw your video. Yeah, you're right. And I was like, yeah, man, like we didn't really talk about it that much, because I think you just kind of assumed I was a Trump supporter because I was not like down with all the like COVID hysteria. But like, bro, like it's we can find a way to like think that Biden's a senile old like racist ass fuck, and also that we're not that big a fan of Trump too, and we can look for alternatives. One of those alternatives is just fuck politics. Let's build something together. You want to do something? Let's do business together instead. So,
I want to return to this, but I do want to, well, actually, I'll just go ahead and say it real quick. And then I do want to get to my point with and get back to talking about family law stuff. But one of the things that's funny is you talk about your friend. I have an old friend too, who kind of went through a lot of the transitions that I did too. His name's Scott Goad, and he wouldn't give a shit if I called him out. But what's funny about it is Scott and I recently started re-talking and talking about different things. And he's like read freedom. He went down a lot of the, wound up voting for Ron Paul, same time frame as I did. I've been friends with him since high school. But he has decided that he's going to run for office. He works for the federal government. And he's decided he's going to run for office when he retires, because he'll be able to retire at like 50, and he's like a year older than I am. And he's like, I'm going to run for office. And my first reaction was, don't run as a libertarian if you intend on winning. And then he was like,
you got an L next to your name. That's lost.
Right.
Lost.
Right. And so
y'all are terrible, like ambassadors for
Yeah, you know what? We're no worse than the actual party is. Okay, look at how well the party.
In a way, it's almost like it's better. It's like, look, we'll tell you these people are fuck ups, but we're still here. God damn it! Like we're not gonna bullshit around the edges and try to sell you shit on a stick. We're gonna tell you it's shit on a stick, and then we're gonna tell you like, help us take the shit off of the stick, because then at least we'll have a stick.
With Scott, I'm hoping he fucking wins. Like, I'm like, okay, I know his demographic.
Oh, right. Yeah, you want that.
He's a Ron
You want
Paul.
that mentality in there. Yeah, you want that mentality in the spot. Yeah, I'm with you there.
So anyway, but what I think really helped me to get to where I didn't have the kind of experience that I've heard a lot from people like Chris. My brother-in-law had similar stuff. He had his kids taken away for kicking a teddy bear, literally, and that's 7 kids. So it's a lot of money.
But kicked 7 teddy bears? Shit.
No, just one. But right. But the difference is none of the 3 of us, my 2 ex-wives or myself, had a mentality of, I want to get something from you. It wasn't
Yeah.
a revenge situation and finding an ally in the government. We were all like, okay, we want to take care of our kids. And I think that's what saved me.
Well, to that point though, Chris, what's your experience with people who like, because I know that there's a lot of that. I know there's a lot of like, there's a reason why people split up, right? People split up, and sometimes there's bad blood. There's some vindictiveness maybe that comes from stuff, especially if there's an infidelity or anything like that.
Right.
But how much of what you have witnessed with how the state gets involved, how much of that stuff is kind of contrived, and a wedge kind of driven by the state, where there is no like animosity, but animosity is kind of like sold as a way to get more money?
That's a good question, because when my daughter's mother and I split up, one of the first, I mean, of course I was devastated emotionally, but I was like, wow, at least I'm not going to have to go through what I went through with my son's mother. We should be able to reasonably sit down and
amicably. Yeah.
And then the letter from the attorney came that accused me of, oh gosh, I was trying to quit smoking, and I was on, I think, Lexapro, of abusing Lexapro, which apparently you can't do. Abusing Lexapro, and they had pictures of a Lexapro box in the back of my car. It is the state, like I said previously, before we went backstage, to Patreon subscribers only. It's that Title IVD funding.
Yeah.
Like these parents, like, it's a scary situation when you make that decision that you're not going to be with somebody. Okay. Especially when it's absence of, alcoholism, addiction, or physical or verbal abuse.
Yeah.
Like somebody just deciding like, hey, we're not working. Okay. Well, what do I do?
Do you talk to them? Do you like at that point, is it just like you can't talk to them? The lawyers are the only, you just talk to each other, like the attorneys talk to each other, and that's it. And so you can't even be like, what the fuck, what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this?
Is okay. So this is where a lot of guys and even women hang themselves. Okay.
Is by doing that.
Like, what the fuck, the text messages, the phone calls. And then as soon as you drop the F-bomb, okay,
right,
that other person's attorney
you're volatile.
You're being verbally abused. How often did he cuss around you? Well, and then at that point, the other person's like, well, yeah, he has. Well, you're being abused. You're in an abusive situation. Okay. So these attorneys manipulate.
I want them to see my text message history with my wife.
Well, let me get
into it a little bit.
I was very keen to that. All right.
Yeah.
But first time I went to court for my daughter, the judge reprimanded me for not being aggressive enough towards my daughter's mother. And this is the one thing my lawyer did right in that case. He stood up and he said, Your Honor, okay, I've just got to say this. I've had 3 cases with you this week where the father was sending text message to the mother, F you, you stupid bitch, and going off on her. And you reprimanded him and did not give him custody about it. And here you have a guy who is being respectful in conversation, trying to keep it at a minimum to avoid confrontation. And you're sitting here chastising him and telling him he was not aggressive enough. Okay. So it boils down to 2 things. Okay. Number one, like we were just talking about, the court systems. Okay. The state wanting to make money and profit off of this. Number 2, the lawyers. And actually there is a third thing, but the lawyers, it's in their best interest. And let me tell you something. The money doesn't just stop at the state. Okay.
Right.
These lawyers and the judges, there's money floating between them too. And you might think that's conspiracy theory, but I have 3 of the most notable attorneys in the family law industry who have told me that judges and lawyers accept bribes from each other. Maybe it's not in the form of money, but hey, maybe I'm going to get you a good deal on that real estate you're getting ready to purchase, or a steak dinner. When these attorneys go into the courtroom, they look like they hate each other. And then you know what they do? They go out golfing with the judges on the weekend all together. Okay.
I see that all the time. I mean, I work in the chemical industry, and we sell these chemicals to these paper mills, these plants and stuff like that. And it's like there's been a lot of crackdown on that. I wonder though, like some of this stuff, it seems like they've said like, no, you local people at the mills, you can't do that. That's for the corporate people. You know, but back in the day, I've heard these stories of like people like I've even heard stories of like people like sending hookers into the corner offices and stuff like that. And there's all that, but there's like fishing trips, hunting trips, and it's not just like bullshit. This is like go to Montana and go elk hunting
totally
for
real.
a week.
That's
kind
totally
of stuff.
What happens. That's
you know what
real.
I mean? And so I bet it's that same kind of thing with those judges. You know, oh yeah, I got a lease. You can come. You want to take 30 people on a hunting trip to my lease? Yeah, have at it. Do your thing.
Same thing.
Know?
It's the same way that Congress operates on a smaller scale.
Exactly.
Now the third thing. Yeah.
right.
The third thing that people don't think about, okay, I'm like maybe the second or third generation of of non-custodial parents to go through this. Okay. A lot of it has to do with the parents' upbringing. So in the instance of my son and her mother and father, they divorced. She had problems with her mother and gravitated towards her father. Okay. My daughter's mother, and my daughter just turned 10 years old, and she's smart enough. I mean, I don't have conversations with my daughter about this stuff because it's honestly, she doesn't deserve to have her life infected with this monster, but she's smart. She's figured things out. And she said to me, and she recognized this, you know, I think part of the reason why mommy does this to us is because her daddy wasn't around when she was little.
Oof.
And that my 10-year-old daughter
That's
saying
big.
that.
That's actually
And I've never said anything like that to her, but it's the truth. And her mother has said to me before, well, I grew up without a father and I'm fine, so she doesn't need you in her life. So it has
it's almost like the family business at that point, you know, like oh, we've always been carpenters, you know, like,
well, it's all they know.
It kind of becomes it kind of becomes that thing where it's like you don't necessarily have to be like pushing it for it to just kind of become part of like I see, like my son was probably 5 or 6 years old, and he put on a hard hat, and he put on, you know, and he's out there and he's like pretending to drive off to, you know, something when he was that little, you know, he put on my hard hat and pretended like he was driving away to go out of town. And it's like, oh, okay. So like, I don't even have to tell you, like, you want this. You just think like, this is what you're supposed to do, because this is what I do.
It's monkey see, monkey do.
It is. It's the same thing with my father. My grandfather was very, very terrible to my dad. My dad was the middle child, and it trickles down, and like every single middle child, and my dad and my family just acts the same. They just represent each other, and just the different embodiment is just cranked up a little bit more than the other. But and I've noticed it with my dad, and I'm like, well, my grandfather wasn't there, and my dad doesn't think he's good enough, and this, that, and the third, and he's running around doing this, that, and everything else. And I just pick it apart sometimes because, you know, with him being gone, I would have to step up and watch all my brothers and sisters. Like, I legit ran a daycare with my little brothers and sisters at one point.
Nico, have you ever talked to him about that? Like, did you find out what was going on? Like, was it an alienation thing, or?
Well, see, it trickles back to his father. I don't think my grandfather had his father, and he was alienated and he was coddled. My grandfather was coddled like a baby, and so
by the mom.
He oh man, we're about to go deep. So my
that's why we're here, man.
Married my grandmother. The history between them is so interesting. My grandfather was going to go to Africa, but he didn't. My grandmother was a nurse. They met up with each other. My grandmother went to Canada. And then after going to Canada, my grandfather was like influenced by my grandmother to go to America. His sister is in New York, so we had family in New York and family in Chicago and all that. My grandmother's the GOAT. She brought a whole bunch of people over from Haiti and Chicago, so she was like little matriarch of just bringing a massive flood of Haitians over to the States. But they got together, had 3 kids, but my grandfather wasn't really in love with my grandmother to the extent of what he thought was love. He met another woman, that third stuff blew up. So he went and was coddled by his grandmother or his mom, and certain things she had, like you guys said, he had a suicidal moment. That's when he got coddled and stuff like that. So my dad, he told my dad at a graduation ceremony full of people, he gave props to my aunt, I think, and my father and my uncle, and then he said something such as along the lines of like, I'm disappointed in you or something. Haitian pride is a fucking bitch. I'm not gonna lie to you. It really drives an animosity, not an animosity, but a bigger rivalry than needed between the son and the father. So my grandfather is a hard old man, and he's ruined a lot of relationships due to that pride. So he disrespected my father in a sense, and my father's coddled by my grandmother. My dad is like everybody says that he's the smartest of the three, but he just gets into so much trouble. He's a troublemaker. And so then it transitioned over to my brothers and my brother, my older brother, Mark, wasn't the troublemaker, but he is the troublemaker. He was the quiet one. But my dad came down harder on Mark because he sees himself in Mark. And so then after that trickled down, I'm going to go through the list of my family siblings real quick so it makes sense. So it's under my mom, it's my older sister, LaShawn, but her dad passed away in a car crash. Then there's Mark and me, which are the only full siblings of my side. Okay. And then there's underneath that, there's Danielle and Carlene. Danielle was the stepmom. I lied. Carlene was the stepmom. Danielle is the girlfriend. And so he had, after me was William with Carlene. Then you have Jalen with Danielle. Then you have, Matthew with Carlene. And then you have Caleb with Danielle. Then you have Lisa with Danielle. Then you have Edward with Carlene, and then you have Kayla with Danielle. So then after all that,
so it's going like back and forth.
Yeah,
there for a little bit. Oh man,
yeah, just jumping back and forth. But and it's I'm not gonna condone it, but that's just common amongst the Haitian household. Like Haitians are more so polygamous.
And it's a different culture.
Yeah, it's a different culture, but it's not really accepted and stuff like that. But here nor there, Caleb is the more difficult child. He's the more hard-headed one of the group. Then you got Matthew, the more hard-headed one of the group. He's failing classes, and I was sitting there thinking, and I'm like, if it were me or Mark, we would have got our heads ripped off. But going to Matthew, I was sitting there thinking, like, I believe physical punishment is necessary for certain things. I don't think education is necessary for physical punishment, because my sense of things and my understanding, granted I don't got no kids, but it doesn't help to try and like break it down kids psychologically to try and make him build himself up with confidence to come and do this work that just counteracts what happens. You have to figure out the situation. Matthew hasn't lived with my dad in the most. I feel like William, Matthew, and Edward have had more of a feminine aspect amongst their lives because they live with their mom more than they didn't see my dad as much. So, what you call it? So,
can I interject real quick? When we talk about school and children having problems in school, let's be clear about one thing. A very small percentage of children are going to have actual problems in school. So when a child's not doing well in school, okay, in my opinion, that is a failure of the state and the system, not the child. And the parents need to advocate for the child or whoever's in that child's life, which is not an easy thing to do by any means. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. Yes, children should not be reprimanded for school. It's up to that teacher and the system to get through to that child and figure out a way. Okay, you know what? He's in a class of 30 kids. He's not doing his work. He's acting up. Maybe we need to get him into a smaller classroom. And it's funny how it gets pushed back onto the child, because I don't think any child comes out of the womb, grows up, and is just like, you know what, I want to suck in school today.
Right.
Or I want to sit in rows and like have like stuff droned onto me with
they're remote learning. And so like my problem with that is like Matthew is like the hyperactive kid, the ADD kid. So it's like he just needs a little bit more environment. So you have him sitting down in class, which you already know he barely sit down in church. So it's like and then so you got him sitting down, and then he doesn't want to learn. How about you take in consideration he hasn't seen his father, and where's the confidence? Who's going to instill it? Yeah, the mom can instill it, but not like the father can. And maybe she can, but there's a different sense of when you get a different form of gratification from somebody else. And a lot of kids, when they get that gratification or that confidence instilled into them, that's when it's just a shift. Like I could have easily, like hands down, easily been like a state champion, a national contender for wrestling and all that. But there were times where like my dad wasn't there for the meets because he was off doing this, then the third, or like he's disappointed me. And so it's like I didn't have that confidence to go out, show my nuts and go crazy, you know?
Right.
I need to say too, a lot of the things that we just talked about, one of the things that continues to reoccur is that this is systematic, and that it shows up from one parent to another parent to another parent to another parent, and goes through. Let me explain something. My dad's dad was an asshole, was a complete and total piece of shit who had no emotions, who treated my dad like he was the biggest piece of junk and never told him he loved him, did not allow for him to have emotions. So my dad was a big piece of shit who didn't have emotions, who told me that I wasn't allowed to have emotions. I remember my mom breaking down when because my mom's passed away now, because she couldn't hold back her emotion. She had, for decades, had not been allowed to have an emotion. Do y'all know me? Emotions are something I live in. I swim in emotions.
Right.
And what I'm trying to say is, yes, these things become systematic, and then they can repeat themselves. I said, fuck that. I am not going to be like that. You can ask, I have 4 kids. You can ask any of them if I love them, and they will all say, my dad made mistakes, but my dad never let me know, or never didn't let me know that he loved me, that he was there for me, that he would be everything for me. What I'm saying is, for Nico, and for that matter for Chris, we can stop this. It was my decision. I saw what my fucking dad was doing. I saw how he shut down. I see the tendency in me to do it. I can see it. But I say no. I own myself. I am in charge of what I do, how I do it, and how I raise my children. And I decided that I would raise my children in such a manner that I respect them, that I show them. And if I'm going to punish them, that punishment is going to come with an explanation to why I punish them.
It's going to be a consequence and a learning experience, not a you did this bad thing, so I'm going to do something bad.
Correct. I'm going to inflict violence because you were being a dickhead. Well, you know what, Dad, you were being a dickhead yesterday and nobody beat your ass. What's your excuse?
I'm the dad and shut up.
Right.
So think about what you teach a kid, because you guys got to admit, I've seen plenty of other parents say, well, because I'm the parent, I'm your mom, or I'm your dad.
Yeah,
you're not teaching them a lesson.
I don't tolerate. I'm like, that's been like a big thing. It's not to say that there aren't some like the closest thing I'll come to that is I'll be like, we don't have time right now. Do this. It's got to be done right now. I'm going to explain it to you later. That's awesome. As close as it, you know what I mean?
Because I've had that conversation.
That way, you know that it's like this has to happen right now this way. Otherwise, some shit's going to go wrong. And I'm not talking about it right now, but I will explain to you
later. I've had that same conversation with my kids. I have always, ever since they were little, I've noticed, and I learned this because of my son. His mother would say, go put your shoes on. And he would ignore the fuck out of her.
Yeah.
And of course, she'd go up a level and start screaming at him. And all I had to do is say, hey, Liam, buddy, go get your shoes on. Okay. So him and I actually sat down and talked about it one day. And he was like, well, I don't like the way she tells me to do stuff. And I said, well, that's why daddy always asks you. Okay. But not everybody's going to ask you.
A little rebellious streak there. He's like,
but I told, oh no, my son, he's definitely rebelling, and he's 13 now. And trust me, I told her he's going to rebel if you keep this up, and he's doing it. I foresaw the future there.
It's human nature. Like, we don't like being told what to do with no explanation and no value for us. Like, just do something I don't want to do because why?
It's the lack of respect that it's not given. It's I'm your parent, so automatically. Well, yeah, I have this God complex for you until I get a conscience and see the stuff that you start to fuck up on, and then you're like, too. So therefore, it's like, you're not almighty, and you expect me to respect somebody who crosses the line daily or do.
Right.
It's like, let me tell you, absolutely. I love my mama to death. I love her to death. And she's a military woman. She's a militant woman. And you can't tell her shit. Like, you can't tell her nothing. And I love her for it, but it also is a hindrance on the fact of, okay, mom, I'm gonna tell you like this. And it's like, kids aren't respected for what they have to say anymore. Like, or ever. It's like, oh no. You've only lived this amount of experience on this planet, so your say can only have this much reach on the mountain. No, I am still a conscious human being that me and you can both definitely say 2 + 2 = 4. So my voice is still as valid as yours. It's just the fact that you have more experiences in these realms don't mean the fact that what I'm saying isn't a truth.
Yeah, what you're doing is you're taking a shortcut out of teaching your child something when you say, well, I'm your mother, listen to me, or you need to respect me, or I'm your father because I say
it's laziness.
That's laziness. And your kid's not learning anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I tell you, when my parents said that when they're younger, of course, you got to do what they do or what they tell you to. But I'm sitting there like, I don't fucking respect you.
Yeah, well, and so take that to the education system back to bring that, because I want to make this point too is, so like we take that and then you make it on a larger scale where it's like, I don't have time to like give individual instruction and actually make sure that you learn this stuff, care about it, are engaged in learning or anything like that. This has nothing to do with you learning. This is about, I'm paid to teach you this shit in this curriculum. And if I check all these boxes and you shut the fuck up, I get to get on with the day and get on with my lessons, give my tests, and then you do your tests. And, we check all these things. I get paid. It's just like the child supports, it's all these different things. They're all, when the state gets involved, and even like the private schools are following. I mean, fuck, all my kids have gone to private school from preschool. Okay. And every one of them, every time there's a hurricane or there's ice because it's too cold, because we live in Louisiana. So like we get both. We get like either the hurricanes, or if it's 24 degrees, oh my God, we have to shut the whole world down because there might be ice on the road, and we don't do salt because it's not worth it to have the salt trucks. But anyway, so we go off of whatever East Baton Rouge Parish does. So like if the state says we're not having school, then the Catholic schools are like, well, we're not having school either because they're not having school. And that's what we go off of. So, and then the curriculums are all very similar. There's some subtle differences, but what I wanted to say was, think about the way that school is structured, sitting in rows or sitting in this spot in the same room all day and just watching Zoom or whatever for these classes and everything. And let's think about, like, as we have become adults, Chris, Nico, Marcus, if you see someone sitting in the same spot for 8 hours a day, what is your thought of that adult?
That's a 9 to 5 right there.
That's what they're groomed to do.
Right, we're groomed to do that. But if you're like thinking about that, like from the standpoint of like a go-getter, somebody who you want to like have on your tribe, someone who you want to go to war with, is that the person you want? The person who's just going to sit there? No, you want you're like, what the fuck? Are you going to do anything today?
They'd be really good at taking orders, I bet.
Right, exactly. So that's where like we're sucking all the creativity out of this, and we're creating that drone.
But yeah,
kind of
and
army.
you gotta apply that to what's going on in the political climate today. Okay.
Mhm.
I think on both sides of the aisle, the four of us here in the audience that pays for Patreon, if they're paying for Patreon, I know they've broken the cycle and they're awake like we are.
Mhm.
But that's where this conditioning comes in. That's where the Democrats are able to pull something up like Black Lives Matter and put an agenda behind it. And the Republicans are able to put up Proud Boys and put agenda behind it. And, the whole police, they turn these kids, and we were part of the generation that it's been done to, into zombies to the point where we can't think for ourselves. I mean, of course, the media being controlled by the people in power and now having Chinese influence is just pumping stuff in. So people sit in front of the TV just like they did in school, taking this information, and that's what they believe. Nobody has been taught to think for themselves anymore. They're not capable of it. They just hear what the narrative is, they grab it, and they say, okay, well, this must be it.
There's also two other pieces to that. One is authoritarianism. They're not only are they being set down to receive their information or what have you, but you receive this information from a lab coat or a person with a uniform with maybe a badge. You get your armband, whatever it is you need.
Special information then.
Right. You get authoritarianism. You have to look towards this person. It can't possibly be that the community can work together on it. It's just got to be this person. It has to be this authority figure, because they can control the authority figures. They can't control communities. So that's number one. Number two is violence. You are taught violence is the answer every single time. And that's why, and I'm not. To the people that are going to say, well, my kids needed their ass whipping. You know what? My kids did need their ass whipped, because when my daughter is going towards a light bulb or towards a light outlet with a fork, I'm going to smack that hand, get that fork out of their hand. But when they're 10 years old, which I have a daughter who's 10 years old, when they're 10 years old and they've done something wrong, smacking that ass ain't gonna do a damn bit of good. All it does is teach them violence. It is one thing to say, to rid a problem, don't do that. That's bad. That's one thing. When they're an itty bitty little kid, I mean, I remember
it's something like putting your hand on the stove or putting your hand, sticking your finger in an outlet, or
you're not
like
necessarily
that.
beating them at that point.
Yeah, you're not beating them. You're just getting their attention. You're getting their attention.
You're
getting their attention.
Tap it out their hand.
Right. I remember when I was a kid, or when I was a kid raising kids, because you guys got to remember, I started this shindig when I was 17 years old. So when I was a kid raising a kid, I got on really early that I could swap Brianna, which is my oldest daughter, on the ass with her diaper, makes a big noise. Ba-boom!
It does nothing.
It's filled with air, isn't it?
What was that?
Right out of her. So I learned that shit right out of the gate.
So you hear a squish. Right. And then you're like, shit. Oh, God. And you got it all over your head.
But they're training us to use violence, because the people who use violence only understand violence, and the state is violence. Everything that the state does is founded on lies and violence. And because of that, if they've got you reacting with violence constantly, they know how to deal with you. If you are peaceful, it confuses the living shit out of them, and they don't know what to do. So they've got to keep you doing that. So on top of what you're talking about, you cannot because you're right, getting people into rows is a way of control for sure. But you also have to remember there are two more components. One of them is respect whoever the person is that we have told you for no goddamn reason is in charge.
Authority.
Right. Authority. And number two, you got to keep them violent, because if you keep them violent, they're controllable.
Right. Yep. And that's
you keep them violent. They end up violent against each other at some point, and then you can step in and be the violent force that stops them from being violent to each other.
Why do you think that they never display, like during riots and stuff like that? Like in movies, they always show the rioting. Once everything hits the fan, they're like, all right, shit hit the fan, time to hit the fan and make this shit like more flammable. No, what y'all do is sit down, strategize, and talk about it. Like that's exactly what the American people did as soon as Mama Vid popped up. Everybody went to the stores and grabbed toilet paper. But
Right.
granted, they were making sure their booty cheeks were clean. They didn't think like, hey, how else do we, stay managing and like be consistent with thought of everybody else besides ourselves and other things of that nature. That's what
I had a friend who
violence
said, he said, I don't understand why everybody's going out there for toilet paper. Your shower is right next to the toilet. All you got to do is, get over there. You can rinse that shit right down the drain.
Well, but when you think about
go ahead.
The riots and everything that's transpired in the past 6 months here, okay? I think one viable reason for violence is a tyrannical government. I will say that. And what tells you that a movement is not wholesome is when they're burning down businesses, burning down neighborhoods, okay?
Laying down in front of the Fed. They laid down in front of the Fed building. And I was like,
here's
really?
The problem. What happens, and Ron Paul used this analogy, you put a frog in a pot of water and you slowly turn the heat up, okay? Eventually that frog's going to sit there until it's dead, okay? Because the water's going to start boiling and it's going to be too late. What's happening in society is, we're starting to see this anger and this rebellion against the system. But like Rothbard said, cleverly, okay, they've dumbed down the population enough to say, you know what? You're not mad at us. You're mad at each other, okay? You're not mad at the things we've done in the past. You're mad at each other. And the people are dumb enough to fall for it. Okay. And that's where when I see these riots and I see these protests, I'm like, no, go over there to the Capitol building, go to your governor's mansion. All right. Because I guarantee when that happens, the media is not going to be like, the peaceful protests are happening in Minnesota because George Floyd was shot by a cop today. All right. What's going to happen is those protesters and those people who are ticked off are going to direct their violence at the government, and the narrative's going to change. Okay. Radical anarchists are attacking the governor's mansion, and that would be what needs to happen. If you want change, don't go out there and blow up your city and go to the courthouse, go to a government building like they did the police station. Okay. That police station, that's the only thing in Minnesota where I was like, yeah, go get it. Okay. Not because it's the police, but it was sending a message to the government. Things need to change.
What people don't understand is
I understand the sentiment.
My bad. Shut up.
Are you recording, Marcus?
I am.
Okay, because I hate to do this. I'm really sorry. I got to bounce. It looks like we might be going to the emergency room. So anyway, love y'all.
I hope you're all right.
Appreciate everything. At some point, we'll have to have you back on so I can, because I want to talk to you about that other thing that we were going to talk
Chad,
about.
I need to upload this myself tonight.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Yep, cool. Yep. All right, man.
All right,
Chad.
Love y'all.
Y'all take care.
Keep us updated.
Right. Okay, we'll do.
I actually probably will need to wrap it up pretty soon too, just because I can hear thunder upstairs and I don't want to lose this in the middle.
Yeah. I do want to make one other point to what I was just saying. Okay, so I'm pointing out Antifa and Black Lives Matter, what happened there. Okay, but on the other side of the right, the right, they're just as disgusting. Okay, so what they'll do is they'll do a free speech rally. Okay, that free speech rally isn't there to promote freedom of speech. It's to draw the Antifa and Black Lives Matter supporters out to have a confrontation with those Trump supporters and free speech ralliers, okay? So that the right can say, look at what they're doing. So it happens, both sides are using these movements, they've hijacked them as political tools. You are a pawn if you're a part of either of those movements. I don't care what your intentions are, what your beliefs are, all right? It is us versus them, not us versus us.
Right. We had recently do you know Adam House?
I probably do. I probably just
he's friends with Adam Kokesh, and he's a friend of mine. He's a libertarian. Long story short, we had him on, and he brought this to a head. He said what should have happened after the George Floyd stuff is you should have had these military people or the Boogaloo people or whatever you want to call them come out, these white folks come out, wrap their arms around these black folks that are being fucked over by the government and said, okay, we've had enough. And if we had come together instead of being driven apart by this, you would have seen real change in this country. And that's what we need, is we need unity. We need peaceful coming together of ideas. I don't fight with people that call themselves ANCOMs or call themselves libertarian socialists or whatever. I don't fight with them. I might debate them, and that might be a fun debate. But I am not going to fight with them because they see the same enemy that I do. They see the state for what it is. And those are my allies. But I do need to say, Chris, though I agree with you about that your target needs to be the government. I think my personal opinion is you keep it completely and totally nonviolent. I abhor violence. They start rolling down in my house, we're going to have a different kind of conversation. Right. But I do not believe that it is appropriate to use violence. Yes, when you've seen the iconic picture of the person putting the flower in the end of the gun. Yes, they got shot. The end of that story is that person got shot. They butchered them. The difference is they butcher me while I'm being peaceful. I become a martyr, and I create 5 or 6 more people just like me who will stand up and say no. And I think that it is important that we show ourselves to be nonviolent, to be as peaceful and good of people as we possibly can. I'm human. I make mistakes. I do fucked up shit. But I try very hard to adhere to a non-aggressive stance on everything. And so although I get the sentiment of going to the police station and tearing it down, what they should have done, my opinion, is they should have shown a better way, gone to the police station, gathered around in circle and said, you won't do that shit again, will you? Because
the police station was just a symbolic gesture of government. I would rather have seen them do it at their state's capitol building or a courthouse. That's what I would rather have seen. But I also think it philosophically, I agree with you. Okay. But where we're at in present times and the things our government is doing, okay, let's look at the shit that's coming out about Hunter Biden right now. Okay. The shit that's going on. Number one, even if we had a peaceful protest that large at a governor's mansion, I have no doubt it would turn violent, not because we initiated the violence. The violence would come from the other side when they got scared and they said, move out, and started hitting people, gassing people. At that moment, that's when I want to see people fight back. So I'm not saying anybody to go running up to the governor's mansion with a group of 500 people and start attacking. Go make them scared. Protest. If they retaliate physically on you, at that point, in my eyes, it's game on.
For sure, but that's defense.
I prefer if people take those numbers that they would rally to them protest and get everybody to sign a petition while at that protest. That just after the protest ends, y'all send that straight to the mail inside to whatever thing that you're protesting, whatever injustice or grievance that you have. Therefore, you have the numbers and bodies that are there because go ahead.
Here's the thing about petitions.
Another option to do with that too is to because you're right, Nico, you have a bunch of people there. You could also say 500 people, say, hey, I need your number. We're going to start a community so that we don't call the police anymore. We call each other.
Right. Well, here's the other thing about petitions. And I've actually talked to several senators and congressmen about this. They say they don't even read 90% of the petitions, 99% of the petitions they get. Okay. Even the ones that are stacks this big. Okay. WeAreChange.org. You sign up for that. All you're doing is giving political parties your information to contact you. Okay. And be sold. It's not. It is the petitions do nothing. They look at it and they go, I don't care.
Denied. You know,
Yeah, that's why I would use those moments to build community. You know, and I personally reach out to the people that you don't know. Reach out. You know, I went to a Open Up Indiana protest here in like April or something like that. Maybe it was May. I don't remember. But anyway, we went to that, and I didn't seek out. You know, I wasn't beelining for my friend Don, who's a libertarian, ran for governor. I'm not trying to talk to him. I know what he has to say, and I know what that community is about. No, I sought out the person with the Trump hat on. I sought out that person, tried to build coalition, tried to bring it together, build community. Yeah, we're going to disagree about this or that, but you get the four of us together, and you're going to have somebody disagree. That's just the way it is. So you have to build community, and you have to find like ideas. And when you have large groups of people together, that is the best time to do that, to say, okay, hey, I need to get, why don't we try, you're interested in police brutality. You saw this George Floyd thing go down. Great. I have an idea that how we can make that. Are you willing to give me an email? Are you willing to give me a phone number? I want to build something. I want to create. Try to use, one of the things that Sun Tzu taught was use the weapons of the enemy against them. Start when they've caused a problem, use that. Get in there and use that what they have created against them. Let those TV cameras be there, see the bricks, be the guy that stands in, because they came out to these protests and delivered bricks. Be the guy standing on the fucking bricks saying, no, don't take the fucking bricks. How about I give you this instead? I'll give you my number. I want to set up a community action group to fight police violence. I want to set up a private community police force where we do this or that or the other thing. Set up real solutions to the state, because the problem that we run into is the state has created itself a monopoly, and we have to be. You cannot wait for some other guy to be the guy that has the idea. You have to be the one with the idea and the one with the initiative to make it happen. It brings me back to what we interviewed my friend Tag Griffin, who runs a homeless outreach. He didn't wait for somebody to start it. He started it himself and took the action, put his own interest into it. And now they're servicing 150 people in Indianapolis every single weekend. They feed them hot food. Is it everybody? No, but it's 150 people that get fed every fucking week. And they're building community and they're building resources. They've expanded that resource now to where they're also offering jobs. They're helping people get clothing. They're helping, they're moving into greater and greater and greater things. But we have to make those solutions. It can't be somebody else.
Right.
So I think
the other thing you brought up was agent provocateurs. That's a big problem. Even when you have a situation like you just explained, there's going to be people injected into that situation who their sole job, they are being paid in some way to cause violence and create a herd mentality. The other problem with that is, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but these are just things to think about. Not only when you're out there with that huge group of people, are there potential consequences by agent provocateurs, but when everybody goes home and separates, okay, that doesn't mean whoever wants this to happen is going to stop targeting those people. So for instance, the family law courts, okay, a lot of people who speak out about the family law courts or go to a protest or are very vocal about it, yeah, they let them get away with it out there. But you know what? Next time they get called into court, they get nailed to the cross because that judge knows. There was, like, for instance, myself, okay? When I first started doing Dad Talk, they filed in court blackmail charges against me, okay? Because I was going out on the internet and I was telling stuff about my case, a case that a judge sealed, all right? And I've seen plenty of other people in that situation. There was a gag order, couldn't talk about it, who went to jail because they said something. The only reason why I didn't go to jail is because I had 170,000 people who watched me say it. And that judge took one look at that video, did some research, saw how many people will watch that video, and was like, nope, I'm not touching this. Had I just been on Facebook putting stuff out there, I would have went to jail for it.
Yeah.
So there's consequences afterwards. And one of the big things I'm realizing, we're not dealing with reasonable, good people on the other side, the government. Okay. I'm not saying the right and the left. I'm saying on the other side in government. These are people who are concerned about themselves. They're concerned about getting their family wealthy, making as much money as they can, and power. Okay. So they're not going to stop just there at that protest.
No.
So that's why, like, if something does happen at a protest, we would see the crowd react appropriately. But hopefully those officers or whoever it is, protecting these dirty government officials would be scared enough to say, yeah, we're not beating this protester. We're not doing this. We're not doing that. Because after all, a lot of these people who are on the front line there, they're just pawns too.
Yeah.
They have families at home.
And
they're trying to keep a roof over their heads.
The thing is, I'm not a big fan of cops. And if anybody has any doubt, just follow my Facebook for a couple of days. But at the end of the day, we're going to need them. We're going to need them to say no. We're going to need cops to say, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not playing this game. And we're going to need each other. And one of the things that I think that the family law topic enables us to do is find a place that if anybody does any little bit of research, they find out very quickly how heinous that is. It's not easily argued. Or it's not difficult to argue how heinous it is. So it is a really good place to go,
And nobody knows about it. I'd have to say it's probably the worst thing that's gone on in this nation since slavery, and nobody knows about it.
Right. Well, our people now know about it. Guys,
Yep.
It is getting pretty rough up outside. I can hear the thunder going crazy. I'm going to need to cut this off. But this has been good. Been fun. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
And stay in touch, and I will send you both the Patreon content and the public content when I get it uploaded. My upload is a whole lot slower than Chad's, so I don't know what time it's going to be. It may be tomorrow afternoon. It may be tomorrow evening before it gets up, but I'll get it up as soon as I can. So,
all right. Sounds perfect.
Love y'all. Have a good one.
You guys.
Love you.
Peace.
Catch 'em. Peace.